Welcome to week 2 of our course. And in week 2 for a reading, we are looking at basic concepts and terminology. Before our collaborative discussion, there are a couple of parts that I want you to take a look at. One of the goals of the course is the history of the English language. I posted this video also in the Google Plus community because I think it's a quick and fun overview of the history of English. I also found this really great timeline of the influences on our language, courtesy of the Reading Rockets site. I will be sending you a link to an article about historical layers of English for your information, coming from that site as well. One of the things that I find really fascinating is that our language is made up of so many words from so many different influences. And I think that's where the teaching of phonics gets really tricky, because we can have rules that apply in many cases and not in others. And so just having that basic understanding of the history of our language, I think, is important. Now, I'm also a big fan of picture books, and I came across this actually a couple weeks ago. Will's Words: How William Shakespeare Changed the Way You Talk. He's actually noted as being quite influential. And so for those of you that work with older students, this might be a good book to investigate. Another favorite that I've had for a while is Cryptomania, and it explores Greek and Latin roots. It's set up more in a comic style format, but it gets into some of the more common roots that have influenced our language. So just some things to check into as you start to consider how the language has been influenced. Now, moving on to the assignment, and this is actually going to connect then to the collaboration part as well. But in the assignment, I'd like you to start thinking about a continuum. Last week, you should have been looking at standards for your grade level and then peeking at ones that come before and after. And so I do have some more information on creating a continuum here. And if you want to do it digitally, I also have tips on Google Drawings. Just to kind of give you an idea of where I'm heading with this idea of continuum, I have this great literacy continuum resource, again by our Ohio State ladies, Fountas and Pinnell, and this has been a great resource, helping me start to think about progressions. Now I'm going to send you a link, or excuse me, access to a spreadsheet on this just for your information, so that those of you that this might be helpful for can take a look. I'm on a spreadsheet, and I've put this together so that you can kind of see it visually. I started with all the way down at kindergarten with high frequency words and word structure, and then spelling patterns. And so what I tried to do is just kind of sequence out skills, where a skill might be introduced or possibly when it needs to be mastered. The bottom 2 rows, I coordinated Words Their Way resources and sorts, which we're looking at throughout the course, as well as some of the recipe for reading information. So like I said, this is a super long continuum of just spelling patterns, high frequency words, and other related skills. And all I have in this right now is K4. But for those of you who will find this helpful. For your assignment though, I'm just asking you to kind of make it more basic, and you can either print out a copy, you can do it on paper, or you can do it digitally. But just kind of construct a continuum for yourself of a single skill. And so there'll be more information about that. But building upon this idea of continuum, that's kind of where I'm trying to go with the resources that I'm sharing. And so one of the next resources that I'm going to share with you comes again from Recipe for Reading, and it's out of that assessment part in the back. It's consonant, vowel, consonant syllables, and so I've got them digitally for you if you are interested. The way I've used this deck of cards before, again, to assess what students might already know about syllables, or it should say just single syllables, rub, quiz, so as students can read. Now by the third card, you notice this is a nonsense word, pawn. When I first started learning about nonsense word assessments, I kind of thought, why? What's the purpose? Why are we concerned about whether or not children can read nonsense words? And it wasn't until I started learning more about syllabication that it began to make sense to me. And so through what I learned through Recipe for Reading and from reading in the Gilliam manual, I had a big aha. I'm going to share this resource with you as well. In fact, this will be linked in your course overview, which you can get from the website, under syllabication specifics here. And so if you're interested in some more about syllabication, this resource will help. And it goes through 6 kinds of syllables and dividing words into syllables. But let me show you why it's meaningful to me. Looking at these nonsense words, tum, chalk, riv, tad, dis, doc, here's when it started to make sense. Aha! These smaller parts are parts of more multisyllabic words. Tum, tumble, dis, disturb. So you can see how these go together. And then I also have just a chart on the back of some of these nonsense words or the attached syllables. Since I work with older students, I find that they often have a really hard time breaking down a new word and looking at those syllable parts. And so for me, that's where a study of syllabication has really helped me think about things. Another resource that I have shared with you here in the overview is a lowercase letter writing kit. And I want to tell you why I'm sharing it with you. So last week, one of the things that we touched on were fonts and the way that can have an impact on our readers. In connection with students reading and recognizing letters, there comes forming letters. Now in our district many years ago, we adopted handwriting without tears, and I got my hands on an assessment tool because I was working with first and second graders, and really teaching them formation was huge. And so this tool helped me dive deeper into the specifics of handwriting, and even more so taking a look at progressions. And I should probably try to scan this and share it. But one of the things that I didn't consider when I was looking at students when they're writing is how size preference progresses as they get older, control of letter, even spacing, and the importance of giving baselines when children write. We have a fabulous occupational therapist that she's now a consultant for a district, but she worked with us, and she did some training that really impacted me about how when we give children consistency in the lines that they use, it really does help with a lot of those issues. And so with this resource that I'm sharing, this lowercase letter writing kit, I'm not sure why I'm having connection issues today. I'll make sure everything's linked up okay. But if this is something that would help you, I did a lot of study into working with kids on forming letters and anchoring them. And so I have some kind of tips and tricks about putting letters in their place, and then even teaching letters by stroke sequences. So there are groups of letters that start all with that top-down stroke and then over. There are groups of letters that start with more of a C stroke and so on. So in this letter writing kit are resources that I created and used that you're welcome to check out and see how they could be useful, because I think that all kind of blends into the things that we've been talking about, phonics and phonemic awareness. So for this week, those are the resources, and then I will be emailing you a link to access this piece and some of the other notes that I've taken from the literacy continuum.